first time I've gotten a package with a video game during the Halloween season, but this one I anticipated. You see, Halloween has gained somewhat of a bad rep the past couple of years for being a celebration of evil or a time strictly to act in so-called bad faith. So I thought, for this year's Halloween season, if this is what people associate Halloween festivities with, why not go all out? Why not decide to start a following in an unorthodox faith to counter the old world of false prophets, bringing in those who are willing to join and sending those that don't wish to worship said faith to their untimely demise? Well, the game in this box is focused on doing exactly that. And in this episode of Cartridges and Consoles, I'll introduce you to the video game that has this exact premise, and show how even with its supposed dark tone, it is considered a truly excellent experience for anyone to try out. So join me as I teach you the lessons of Cult of the Lamb. Cult of the Lamb was the fourth game developed by independent studio Massive Monster and released worldwide for all major platforms on August 11th, 2022. You assume the role of the last surviving lamb, who in a land of false prophets is sacrificed before the four bishops of the old faith to preserve their power over the world. However, your death brings you face to face with an imprisoned deity known simply as the One Who Waits, who agrees to resurrect you if you start a loyal cult in his name and gives you the power of a demonic crown, which will give you the tools necessary to accomplish such a feat. This leads into the main gameplay of Cult of the Lamb, which is primarily split into two parts. The first part involves you traversing through crusades in dungeons, where you must defeat any so-called heretics that stand in your way. At the start of every crusade, you'll be given a weapon that your crown can form into, as well as a special move called a curse that you can use fervor you collect from defeating enemies to execute. In addition to the main type of rooms where you fight against any heretics, these dungeons can also give you opportunities to collect food and resources, a chance to visit shops to buy goods, or several other events that can help you on your quest. You'll even come across areas where you can pick up tarot cards, which can enhance your power to guide you in your crusade, and relics, which are a second form of special move that are much more powerful, but can either break upon use or take a while to charge up. The other part of this main gameplay is running your own cult in the name of the One Who Waits. Your cult will be sheltered in this secluded area where the four bishops, ideally, cannot find you. In this area, you have the ability to construct icons, buildings, and decorations to make your cult a prosperous place to live, while also making it sustainable for your followers. These followers are mainly found in dungeons, and it's their faith in you that will help you and your cult grow stronger. As your cult members believe in you, they'll give you devotion, which can unlock divine inspiration that can be exchanged to unlock new buildings and upgrade your cult. As the cult leader, you can also perform sermons to help gain more faith across your cult and level up your build for the crusade segments, giving you access to more health, new weapons, and more. There's also commandment tablets you can collect either in your crusades or from your loyal followers that you can use to establish doctrines in your cult. Whether they create a cult-wide trait, allow for the practicing of certain rituals, or change the functionality of day-to-day operations, these doctrines can change the entire livelihood of your cult. Throughout all of this, it's up to you to not only build up your cult by recruiting loyal followers, but also defeat the four bishops of the old faith in order to free the One Who Waits from his chains. Now, there are a lot of positives I can pinpoint with this game, with one of the biggest ones being the super enticing gameplay provided here, be it both in the Crusades and the life sim portions. For the Crusades, since Cult of the Lamb falls into the category of a roguelike video game, the rooms and paths you are offered when entering a dungeon will never be the same 2 times in a row. Every room layout is randomly generated when you enter into one of the 4 worlds, and the only thing that is certain is that your crusade will start and end with combat-style sections, and that a mini-boss will await you at the end. Anything else is up in the air. Plus, the choice is yours on which paths you'd want to travel on in these dungeons. Do you want to add more followers to the flock, or harvest resources like lumber and stone? Maybe you'd want to visit a shop, go to a healing location, or collect extra tarot cards to aid you in your run. The choice is entirely up to you. Speaking of, these tarot cards also completely change how you approach your crusade. The exact cards you come across in your journey are always randomly generated, and whether the card you get gives you extra health, increases the power of your weapon, or does anything in between, each card can change up how your crusade plays out. Even the weapons, curses, and relics can change how you approach your run. Some weapons do heavy damage but have low attack rate, while others are fast but not as lethal. And some of these weapons have bonus attributes like being able to deal poison to enemies or occasionally heal you for every heretic you defeat. Later on, you even gain the ability to use a heavy attack for each of the weapons. That takes up some fervor to execute, but in return does massive amounts of damage and is also necessary to defeat shielded enemies. Meanwhile, the curses can help you excel in either close-range combat or long-range hits, but are also not too overpowered, as you need the right amount of fervor to use them. And then there's the relics, which, while much rarer and harder to use, can either enhance your run even more, or can make your life a living hell if you so choose. Plus, after you defeat the bishop corresponding to each world, you'll be given the option to re-enter said world. Doing so will result in an increased enemy difficulty and the option to continue your crusade and do a fresh wipe of the board after you defeat a mini-boss, which means even more chances to enrich yourself in the gameplay of these crusades. Alongside said crusades being so enticing, you also have the life sim portion of the game that involves you running your cult, which is super easy to get really hooked into. From building new structures to aid your cult members, to tending your followers' needs around the cult itself, to even interacting with your followers and raising their faith in you, your cult's lifestyle is truly one you can get lost in easily. While I will say in early game you'll definitely hit some snags when it comes to the life sim portion, as you'll be juggling tasks like nobody's business and running out of resources regularly, it still means you'll be hooked into every aspect it has to offer, up until you eventually have a cult that can almost completely manage themselves toward the late game. As for the controls, none of this enticing gameplay would be as enjoyable if it weren't for how fluid the controls can be, most of which is thanks to the signature move of the dodge roll. This roll is not only your key to dodging attacks, but also your primary fast move option to get you around the map quicker. And with its unlimited cooldown only restricted by a timed button press, it means you can fly through areas and dodge attacks like nobody's business once you perfect it. Sure, you'll look like a flashing light on your screen and might lose track of what's happening early on, but it still is one of the most satisfying moves in the game to pull off, and truly a delight to master. Alongside the roll, the attack actions in the dungeons all feel very fluid. Only some curses and heavy attacks take a while to use, as they require you to hold the attack button down and aim the attack like a projectile. But once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to take down hordes of enemies with ease. And of course, interacting with your cult and moving across the world also can be a fluent dream. The only issues I ran into were certain minuscule hitbox issues when trying to interact with an object or person, or sometimes trying to roll to leave an area only to back out of the selection screen instead. But these still don't hinder how fluent the controls feel across the entire game. In addition to the general enticing gameplay, there are a number of different modifiers you can encounter that can change the entire game experience. From the start, there are a total of 4 difficulty options you can change to at any point across the entire game, as well as 2 modes that you can toggle before starting a new save. Those being permadeath mode, where one death will end your entire cult, and penitence mode, where you have to keep your character alive via feeding them and letting them sleep, like how you take care of your cult members. Even as you go along in the game, you'll run into ways to spice up the experience. One such example is with the doctrines you establish for your cult, which make it so everyday aspects of your cult can be altered at a moment's notice, which can make such a large difference down the line. Another is with holy talismans you collect by helping out locals you encounter across your journey, that you can use to unlock new cloaks that can change how your crusades are handled. From allowing you to self-heal but removing the ability to find hearts, to replacing all your basic hearts with more temporary ones, to even a talisman that makes you a glass cannon, where you do 10 times the damage but die in one hit, The possibilities are endless, and it shows how Cult of the Lamb is a game you can tailor to your playstyle, whatever said playstyle is. Also, if it isn't obvious how much I've talked about this game so far, Cult of the Lamb is a game chock full of content. You not only have the Crusades and the life sim portion, but you have a fishing minigame to harvest resources, several areas outside your cult where you can interact with a strange cast of characters who will give you quests in exchange for goods and holy talisman pieces, a place where you can play Knucklebones, a dice game of luck and strategy against fellow strangers, and so much more. Not to mention the fact that after you beat the game, there's more content you unlock and are able to play through, such as new missions where you rematch the bishops and obtain their relics, and a mode known as Purgatory, where you take on gauntlets and dungeons to gain extra rewards. To make a long story short, you can spend hours upon hours upon hours playing through Cult of the Lamb and still not explore everything there is to see and accomplish all there is to do. Plus, since the game's release, Massive Monster has been regularly releasing DLC and content updates for Cult of the Lamb, and more updates are expected to release in the coming years, meaning if you step away from the game for a while, the next time you come back, there might be a bunch of new stuff you didn't know they added. It truly feels like if you get bored at all playing Cult of the Lamb, there's something you haven't found yet that can get you hooked back in, which once again proves just how great this game truly is. But what is an abundance of content centered around this world without lore explaining said world you're enriching yourself into? And thankfully, Cult of the Lamb is a game so enriched in lore, it feels like it's never ending. From sparse lines of dialogue throughout the game, to pieces of knowledge you gain after beating the final boss, to even items outside of the game like Devolver Digital's official animations and the official graphic novel series written by Alex Pagnadel, the lore for this game is deep. So deep, in fact, if I try to cover every bit of it here, we'll probably be here until next Halloween. And all of this game is complemented by an award-winning soundtrack composed by Narayana Riverboy Johnson, which is truly one of the strongest parts of the entire game. The soundtrack covers every basis of your journey, from the calming scenes of helping your followers in their everyday life around the cult, to the teeth-clenching themes of the mini-bosses you face off against in the dungeons. Every bit of the soundtrack truly pulls you into the Cult of the Lamb experience, and it's no wonder why this soundtrack is so well appreciated and helps cement why this game is loved to this day. However, in my experience playing the game, there are two issues I did run into that did bring down my overall enjoyment. The first relates to the difficulty. Because of the sheer brutalness this game can provide at a moment's notice, it does take a lot of time for newcomers or people not used to a game of this style to adjust to. When I first played this game, I'll admit, I did start on medium difficulty, but had to switch to easy midway through since I was having a lot of trouble in the second half. Obviously, this is not going to be the case for everyone, as some players will be a pro straight out of the gates, while some people will want to tone down the difficulty just to have a more enjoyable time. And I'll admit that I'm more used to the normal difficulty setting after playing the game for so long, but it's still something I wanted to bring up, as it does take a bit to get used to. I'll also say that the game, unfortunately, can also have some noticeable bugs or issues you can run into. Now, thankfully, when recording this footage, I didn't run into a ton of these issues, but in the past, I've dealt with some pretty bad visual glitches and moments where the game would have a sharp frame rate drop or just straight up crash. Though I'm gonna chalk this up to the fact I own a physical copy of this game on the most limited piece of hardware it was released for in the Nintendo Switch. It's so limiting, in fact, that all the footage you've seen here was taken on a Nintendo Switch 2, as the frame rate and quality of this game on the Switch 1 is really bad. So again, this is gonna be a case-by-case basis. But take it from me, don't get this game for the base Nintendo Switch, unless you like the smell of overheating consoles and take crashes and glitches as a challenge. In summary, Cult of the Lamb truly is a game that has transcended the ranks of video game history, and even with its dark theme, is one that's an absolute joy to enrich yourself into. It's extremely easy to get hooked into the enticing gameplay that is offered, from traversing through the Crusades that are focused on an ever-changing dungeon layout to interacting with your cult in the life sim portions, all of which is supported by a superbly fluid control system that is a true highlight on its own. In addition, there's so much content that the game offers alongside its core gameplay, from modifiers to challenge your skill, to extra modes and locations, to post-game elements that have you coming back for more. And that's not even scratching the surface of what this game has to offer. Add all of this in alongside a soundtrack that seemingly integrates into the adventure and a deep story with plenty of lore, and you have a game that is an absolute delight from beginning to end, and even well after the fact. If you can ignore the supposed signs of evil and practicing bad faith this game on paper seems to have, like how we do such for Halloween, it is truly considered a must-play for everyone, as it has all the pieces to be considered one of the best video games ever made. This Halloween season, Massive Monsters Cult of the Lamb gets my personal rating of 10 out of 10 golden cartridges.